Okay, so got my buckets out. I'm ready to make chicken feed. And that black Orpington Americano cross saw me from up there, grabbed them feed buckets and ran all the way down here trying to get in on it. So here's my secret. Well, one of my many secrets. Cheap $10 bag of feed. The reason why this is only $10 is because this is one of the last processes when you buy this kind of feed. Is this here? See how fine and powdery that feed is? I don't know if I gotta put the light on. But see, it so crumbles. Crumble is the last of the last. So my rooster came over here to get her. Just spanked her. But so that's the reason why this bag of feed is so cheap. Because it's all the same stuff that goes in the other bags of feed. It's really what's left at the bottom of the barrel. Technically it still is usable, but here's the thing, they can't process this no more. And if you use something like this, the animals won't eat it, because the moment the chickens kick it, it's dust. Like only 50% of this would be getting used. The rest would be like draw insects and stuff. So to stop that, I ferment my own batch. And I'm not gonna do beans in this one because my bean ones take longer to ferment. So I actually start fermenting the beans earlier than the feed. So cheap IGA, long grain rice. I believe this whole big bag, 10-pound bag of rice was less than $10 at the IGA. And take them, combine them with my also the cheap whatever brand store you going to, apple cider vinegar, and you add that to the mix. Alright, so just these 4 ingredients: the cheap feed, cheap vinegar, cheap rice, and like all the ponds and wells I got here is free water. So mix them up in that bucket, put the lid on it, and that's that. So taking the cheap feed, mixing them in the bucket, taking the vinegar, mixing it into the water, and always use apple cider vinegar. It's always better than just the white distilled, even though sometimes that works, but that's more for the outer body. The apple cider vinegar is better, and usually doesn't cost you more unless you buy certain organic brands. And so I'm thoroughly mixing this dusty stuff in the grains. And it doesn't have to be rice. All it is whatever grains are cheap at the time. You know, you can get milled corn and stuff like that, because you got to figure all the grade A food is going on shelves for people. And when you make this paste, stuff that will go to waste to begin with at a mill, you make this paste, none of it blows away in the wind, and they'll eat solid chunks like this. This isn't fermented yet, but the fermentation does it with the grains and stuff like that. I guess they acting camera shy, because normally they be leaping over top of each other. So like right now, see, I hit a dry spot. That stuff, that dusty stuff will blow away, and that's food going to waste. So when you make a paste like this out of the low grade stuff, it actually becomes high grade stuff. And then when you have the whole grains and throw it in with this, the whole grains ferment, and are better for the animals and stuff like that. So, you know, when people go, oh, I only buy my animals this grain and that bread brand and blah 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 blah, you know, there's nothing wrong with that stuff. That stuff is good and great. And then you got people that go the other route. Well, I ain't paying all this money, you know, for this, that, and the third. And then at the same time, you know, I think people that don't open their minds suffer uh, at one end of the spectrum or the other, because they both have a point. You know, not everybody can afford to feed their animals a bunch of whole grains and stuff like that. And but at the same time, the guy that's so cheap don't want to spend nothing. Well, you don't have to buy a lot of that stuff, guy. You know, you can buy a little bit of it that's still within affordability, and this is how you stretch it. And this is how your animals produce better and get high quality feed. Now this is just one bucket, and being as though I only put a couple of cheap rice grains in there, this should ferment in about, with the heat down here, a day, 2 days at the most. After a day, it'll smell like sweet wine. Depending on how many actual whole grains I put in there, like 2 days, it usually smells like beer, stuff like that. So, and the more it says, should start smell like liquor, and then sour mash after that. Usually, when I'm fermenting beans, because they take so long, that's usually the only thing that starts to smell like sour mash or whatever. But believe me, it's like slow cooking beans for them, without leaching all the nutrients out that like high temperature cooking does. So there you go, easy feeding.